Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Xraised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm your host, Miles, and today we have a returning guest who has stood at the intersection of tradition and transformation and decided not just to cross it, but to build a whole new bridge. Imagine this, you're a top tier, multi awarded barrister, widely published, and a force in both the courtroom and construction law. Most would say, job well done, but not her. Instead, she went from litigating landmark cases to launching a legal tech company that's reimagining how lawyers conduct research. She founded MiAI Law to create a smarter, faster, more trustworthy way for legal professionals to access evidence grade legal intelligence. And she didn't just launch it quietly in her Sydney headquarters. No, she went straight to London, the global legal capital, with a product designed for Australia. With a Harvard Business Edge, 30 years of experience, she's on a mission to give lawyers a perfect memory. So let's get this rolling with a phenomenal, fearless, and always fiercely articulate founder and CEO of My AI Law, Laina Chen. Hey, Laina.
Hi, Miles. Do you get AI to write the intros?
Yes,
You
I
do?
have to because it's too long. I have to summarize what I was about to say or what I'm about to say every episode. Yeah, it's good to have you back here on X-Rays. You've been on a radar for a while now, and now the world is catching up. London first, and maybe rest soon to follow. So let's start with that bold move, Lena. We know that My AI Law is built to solve a deeply Australian legal research problem, yet you choose to launch in London, one of the most scrutinized and perhaps sophisticated legal markets globally. What drove that decision, Lena? What message were you sending by going international from day one?
We did go international from day on because we launched our company last year in July at the Borneo ADR week in Kuching.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was because the conference owner of L2Con, he said that he wanted to be the first person to recognize, I'm putting words into his mouth, but basically he wanted to be the person who provided my AI law with the launch pad because he wanted it noted that he was there first. And then,
Oh, so London is second.
yeah, London is
I
second.
see.
And
Well,
then, and then the intention has always been to do Australian law first, but then immediately UK law second. So we're hoping to have UK law capabilities by the end of the year.
exciting. Wow. Such a power move. Launching in a market known for its high legal standards to prove your product's credibility.
Well, actually, it's very exciting because we went well when we got people were interested in what we had to say. But most importantly, I had all these really great meetings in London as well. And one of them was organized by a friend who organized for us to meet with the Fuse program at Allen and Overy, which I hadn't really been aware of before. But Allen and Overy have an incubator program, which I think they started back in 2017, where they support legal tech startups at various phases of their development.
Mm.
And we met with them last week, and they have now invited us to apply for their next cohort, which will start in May next year. So hopefully that works out because then they will give us offices in San Francisco and in London and access to their lawyers and to also their clients to help us fine tune our product because we will have US capabilities and London capabilities by May next year. I
Uh-huh.
had meetings in Hong Kong as well before we got to London,
Mhm.
and I've been persuaded to do obviously not just UK, which was always on the roadmap, but immediately after we do UK, I've picked four US states, New York law, New York law, California law, Delaware law, and Texan law, as well as the federal law to
Mhm.
deliver my AI capabilities for those jurisdictions as well.
Uh-huh. The UK and in the US by May 2026.
Yes, UK by the end of this year, and then US by definitely by May next year. And so that hopefully, fingers crossed, if we get into the Fuse program, we'll be able to work on product market fit and fine-tuning the features for those jurisdictions.
Well, I can't imagine your calendar.
But it's
So,
actually driven by customer demand because if you want to do Australian law properly, you have to do UK law. And so,
uh-huh,
I mean, because we're derived, Australian law is derived from UK law. So you have to
mhm,
have that capability. And I had looked at other jurisdictions, like, for example, I've been thinking of doing Hong Kong law, but then not all of the Hong Kong law is in English. And
mhm.
at least some of the criminal cases are in Chinese, and I'm just not sure what else is also in Chinese. And I don't want to play with the translations and then risk
Mhm.
producing inaccuracies into my AI law.
Right. Now, Laina, in our previous chat and in your launch video, you shared that MiAI Law was born out of your own pain as a legal researcher. So take us back. How did that moment or that frustration shape the audit grade jurisdiction specific solution MiAI Law has become?
Well, because in the beginning, I just wanted to be able to tap into my own knowledge, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but this is a very common problem that everyone wants to solve, which the big law firms do. They tap into their own IP, and that's a very common solution. But then that's not really enough because that will only bring you up to date historically, but it doesn't bring you up to date to the moment. And so in order to do that, you have to also do legal research. But
Mm-hmm.
then you can do legal research. You don't really need your historical research anymore. Well, it's in your brain anyway,
Mm-hmm.
but you can my AI law will be able to do much more than I ever could as a human being. But
Yeah.
since I spoke to you last, we've done more than that. We've now created a whole new contract review audit suite,
Mm-hmm.
which is really, really quite amazing. So we can now now we're not just looking after litigators and people who need to do research, but we're now looking after the whole spectrum of lawyers from negotiation all the way up to research. So we also have a contract review suite so we can, well, easily summarize a contract for you. And we do this for any sort of contract and we do it back to first principles. And I think, once again, I don't think anyone else has done it the way we've done it. And you can upload a contract and it will review the contract for risk and legal.
Mm-hmm.
It will go through the contract and identify which clauses are problematic, and it will put a flag next to it, whether it's a red risk, an amber risk, or if it's fine, a green flag, and a green light. And then it will tell you why it's a problem and it will reason it back to first principles. It will give you the cases that has helped it identify that it's a risk. It tells you why it's a risk. It tells you the recommended action, and then it will provide you with an alternative clause.
Mm-hmm.
And it does this. I've got two formats of the report. One format is more outward facing for in-house counsel, so it's not so technical, but it's gone through the same analysis. It's just easier to digest. And it will highlight the three key risks, and the rest is all in a table. But then following that, it will analyze issue by issue, each clause by
Mm-hmm.
clause, which ones need to be amended and why.
Yeah.
And then we also have an audit program where we'll go through and we'll read in all the defined terms in the contract into the contract, read it all in, and to see whether it leads to any ambiguities or inconsistencies, and also
Mm-hmm.
reads in all the cross references. And this is where normally uh, the defined terms are not normally fully resolved. And if it's not fully resolved, then it can lead to ambiguities, uncertainties, and litigation. So
Mm-hmm.
we have that as well. And I managed to use it because for my own personal use, because the publisher was wanting me to participate in a book project of theirs.
I heard.
They sent me they sent me the terms and conditions. And I said it was just 2 pages, 3 columns, very tightly close type,
Uh-huh.
and I said to them that I needed to put it through my AI law. And they said to me, well, it's only our standard terms and conditions. But I put it through anyway, and it identified that it was very, very much publisher centric, that it
Mhm.
was gave them complete discretion really to change the whole value proposition for me by possibly changing the content, changing the participants, just having complete discretion to do
Mhm.
whatever they wanted to the book. And so it identified the key risks. It explained why they were risks and, obviously not in my favor. And then it suggested alternative wordings. And so I generate the two reports, one a more deeply technical report that's meant for counsel
Yeah.
and another one for in-house counsel. And I sent both reports to the publisher, and the publisher said that, well, they said it was a really impressive tool, and they accepted all the suggested changes. And then they sent back the contract with it all marked up, and then I then reviewed it all and made sure everything was fitting together. I put the lawyer hat on, and
Mhm.
then we just fine-tuned it a bit, and then we finalized it and we signed it.
Mhm.
So, but it was really helpful because, and I know we're only selling to lawyers, we're not selling to normal lay consumers, but it just made the point really easily for me as to why certain clauses were a problem. It was all explained and set out.
Yeah.
And I met with one law firm last week in London, and they identified that it would be really useful for them in their due diligence when you're doing a mergers and acquisition to be able to feed the contracts in that they have to review into MiAI Law, and they wanted to know if it could be done in parallel. And I said, yes, you can run as many
Mm.
contract reviews as you want in parallel, but you do have to upload the contract yourself.
Yeah.
And then you can run it, and then while you're doing well, the fact is it runs so quickly, you have to upload them. I guess the paralegal, somebody can upload the contracts for a review while you do something else. But each
Mhm.
contract review, and it takes about a few minutes. It doesn't take very long, and then you can review the contents.
Yeah. Well, we'll get deeper into that and the audit ready revolution perhaps in our next episode. And, I always find it inspiring when the solution comes from someone who lived the problem. And in your case, you didn't just find a workaround, you built the workaround into a business model with the progress that you've shared. It's very exciting. And talk about real world empathy turned innovation. And you've also made it clear, Lena, that my AI law isn't here to replace lawyers again, but to supercharge them, especially the junior ones who might not have decades of case law in their heads just yet. How exactly does my AI law empower legal teams? And what kind of feedback have you gotten from early adopters?
I think that there's still a thought that you don't have to check AI, but you do have to check AI because by its very nature, you cannot guarantee that it will not hallucinate. And some people I've seen on LinkedIn, make comments about the fact, yes, it's predictive, but so what? But it's really important because it is predictive and it doesn't actually understand what you're saying. It's only predicting what the next word might be. That means it has no real cognitive abilities. It doesn't really understand. And so it's only predicting patterns, so it doesn't always get it right. And even I cannot guarantee 100% accuracy. I
Mhm.
cannot do that because simply of the nature of AI and the simply of the because of the nature of the way LLMs work. And so because of that, the you can't just, and I know there'll be a desire to get rid of the lower level staff so that
Mhm.
the companies can save money. But that's kind of dangerous because you have to check it. And yes, you will be able to get the deeper and the quicker answers quickly, but you can't trust it. You have to check
Mhm.
it, even if it's
Right.
very seductive. And even if my AI law will get it right 99% of the time, I can't
Mhm.
guarantee it's 100% of the time. Nobody can guarantee that LLMs or AI models will be accurate 100% of the time.
Mhm.
There is a risk that 1% of the time that there's something in there that's not quite 100% right, simply because of the way LLMs work. So you
Mhm.
still have to have those lawyers checking the work. It may be very quick for them to get the research report generated from MiAI Law, but you still have to go back and forth and ask follow-up questions, etc. And then when you get the underlying report, you do have to follow the links and check that it's correct. And it
Mhm.
definitely, for example, is not enough for me to go to court with it. It's just a good way to get it started and to send you on the right track. But it's not enough for you to say, I can just rely upon these reports that I've generated and it's going to be enough. So for example, with the contract review audit reports, I have like manually checked them. I have like, I like to use liquid text where I can put in the reports and I can draw links between
Yeah.
the reports and all of the underlying clauses to check that everything's correct. And in those contract review audits, so far I found them to be 100% accurate. But that's no deep reasoning. Well, that's lucky actually, but so far I have, but I can't guarantee that every single report is going to be 100% accurate and there's not something in there that has, hallucinated or done something funny. And you still have to bring your mind to it because in one of the clauses that it picked up in the publisher's contract was that it said that if I cancel the contract for any reason, then I was subject to a 100% cancellation fee. And it said that that was potentially a penalty. But actually, I don't think that's correct because if I choose to cancel the contract and it's not the publisher's fault, then I
Mhm.
choose to cancel it. Then for freedom of contract, then I think it's fine that the publisher gets a 100% cancellation fee if I choose to cancel it. But
Mhm.
then we have worked into the contract other scenarios so that if the publisher changes the value to the point that it's no longer in my interest to complete the contract, and then I can cancel it and I'm entitled to 100% cancellation fee back. And so we've worked it. So you do have to bring your lawyer's brain to it, right? You can't just say, you can't keep everything. You
Mhm.
can't just accept whatever it is that the reports come back. And same with research. You have to track it through, you have to follow it through. And because our reports are all reduced to first principles, we will tell you the correct principles and we'll analyze it in accordance with the correct principles. But if you're actually using it for a court case, etc., if you're actually going to be the person standing in front of the judge, you need a bit more knowledge than that. So you do need to track it through to the underlying cases. It just sends you on the right path. And so I think it's very seductive for partners or firms or business owners to think, oh, great, we can possibly reduce our headcount. But I
Mhm.
think that's a risk because you need to train your lawyers up to be able to one day become your succession
Yeah.
pathway, but you also need to check the work. So I think you really should think about it as a way of supercharging and making your practice
Mhm.
greater, and having more technical and in-depth knowledge rather than thinking, oh, good, we can just rely on everything AI
Mhm.
produces without having to check, which is what people seem to want to do. It's really weird. And maybe because people just don't appreciate that how AI works. And
Mhm.
then maybe that's why we get all these cases where lawyers get in trouble because they use AI to do their research, ChatGPT or whatever they've been using,
Yeah.
which hallucinates wildly, and then they just rely on the output and use it as a submission in court, and then they get in big trouble because
Mhm.
a lot of those cases have been made up.
Yeah, and it's critical. It's basically a booster. And thanks for giving that clarity, Lena. AI doesn't have cognitive abilities. It doesn't have the decision-making capabilities that we have, and it's not 100% correct.
It just mimics.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It mimics, it doesn't reason. And so if you want to get super intelligence, then you have to bring that cognitive ability into your system. And yes, we've gone quite a bit of a way towards that because I have been able to build in my legal reasoning abilities into our model. And
Okay.
so I've written so many algorithms,
Okay.
150 pages worth of them, a lot. And a lot of algorithms. And it would have been more if I hadn't been able to work out a way to do everything according to first principles. So it's one algorithm per research type because I've been able to do it so that it covers every single subject matter area.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if you're using ChatGPT or if you're using Perplexity or Gemini or whatever it is you're using, then that has no cognitive abilities. It's only mimicking and it's only parroting and it's only guessing what
Mm-hmm.
the next word might be. So that's very dangerous
Yeah.
for lawyers or anyone
In
who think,
general,
oh,
yes.
well, it's just so seductive. It looks so correct. But when you delve into it, a lot of the materials and the answers that it returns are just not relevant or has gone off on a tangent.
Mm-hmm. Bottom line
We
is we can
don't,
just go with it or go with what
yes.
AI is feeding you without checking the actual information.
And for my AI law, we don't do that. And generally we're correct. And
Mm-hmm.
but but still, because of the nature of LLMs, I cannot guarantee it's 100%. We may be able to guarantee it's 99% accurate
Mm-hmm.
and 99% no hallucination, but there's still that 1% that I cannot guarantee.
Yeah. So
So you
this is
need to
a
check it.
tool that doesn't just give answers, but teaches them how to actually, I remember, prompt the right way and ask better questions. And you've used a term that's music to every lawyer's ears, evidence grade, Lena. In a world of opaque algorithms, obviously you offer transparency and traceability. Can you break down what evidence grade means in my AI Law's context and why that's a game changer in legal tech?
For us, the way we've designed our system is that it has to go through reasoning steps. And we reveal all those reasoning steps at the end of each report. We tell you exactly the thinking process that the model went through, and then we tell you with a hyperlink to the underlying case, all the cases that we retrieved as a result of each thinking step. And then we then identify which cases we've actually relied upon to prepare the reports. And
Mhm.
everything is reduced to first principles, and then it's hyperlinked to the to the source material. So
Yeah.
we have, yeah. So when you get your report, you'll have on the left-hand side the report, and then there's all these hyperlinks every time we identify a principle that we've
Mhm.
relied upon in our reasoning process. You'll be able to click on it, and then the case will or the legislation will show up on the right-hand side. And when I say first principles, it means that we only ever rely upon the cases and the legislation. We don't ever go and look at what other people
Mhm.
say the cases mean. And I know that the lawyers of today, and I was having lunch with yet another seasoned lawyer in London on Sunday, and I'm sure he said to me that it's very common for the junior lawyers of today to just go to Google and just find out what other law firms have said about the subject. I think he said that. I know they've done that because I've had paralegals work for me and they do that. And instead of trying to work out the answer from first principles, instead of going to the cases themselves and looking to see what the cases say, they cheat by going onto Google and then just seeing what other law firms say. And you just don't know if those other law firms have gotten it right because generally those law firm publications are not written by anyone particularly senior. They're generally written by the really low level paralegals or junior lawyers, and we don't know how accurate it is. And so and when I was trained, I wasn't told to go on Google. I was told to go look at the Holsbury laws of Australia, the Holsbury laws of England, to
Okay.
start with that as a guide to see where to go. And then I was told that once you have looked at Holsbury, or if you pulled up a textbook and
Mhm.
you've looked at that, then you have to go to the underlying material to
Mhm.
see what those cases actually say. Because there's errors. Errors are built into those books. So sometimes we have found that the footnote
Mhm.
hasn't accurately uh, summarized the case, or the reference is wrong, or when you go and you look at sometimes even the head note of a case, because again, that's prepared by a human. Sometimes the head note hasn't summarized the case itself properly. So we don't do that. We've eliminated all those possible errors by looking at the case itself,
Mhm.
looking at everything from first principles. And that really, I think, is our secret sauce because nobody else has been able to do that. And also, for example, with contract reviews, I've met with a lot of in-house counsel, and it was actually a friend of mine who's oh, actually, I met with in-house counsel of the NBA. I've met with in-house counsel from investment banks, etc. And
Mhm.
they all wanted me to do the contract review audits, the contract review suite that I've done for England and America, etc. And others, other friends of mine who represent, for example, the oil and gas industry in Houston, they want me to do our MiAI Law for their particular jurisdictions because
Mhm.
helpful. I understand that the contract review apps or tools that are available now, all they do is that they compare, I understand, the contract that is under review with what they call the bench, which is the firm's precedents, etc. And it just identifies whether they're different.
Mhm.
And I've spoken to a lot of in-house counsel now, and they've said that's right. It will identify as a red flag if the contract you've uploaded has clauses that are very different
From
to
the
what is the precedent. And it'll tell you it's different, but it doesn't tell you why one version is necessarily better than the other.
yeah.
And it doesn't tell you, it doesn't go through the reasoning like we do. And it just
Mhm.
identifies as a risk and identifies that there's a problem, but there's no legal thinking, no legal basis for it. It just doesn't go as deep as ours.
And I guess that's the difference between tech that assist and tech that insist. Evidence grade means lawyers don't just trust the answers completely. They can actually verify it, cite it, walk it into court with confidence for as long as they check it, right? So you're done launching My AI Law in London, but what's the longer term vision here, Lena? Aside from what you said earlier, the UK by the end of the year and in the US by May of next year, are you building any modular platform that could serve multiple legal systems in other places in the world?
I mean, with the plan is that once I have the UK capabilities and the US capability and Australia, then yes, there's a few other jurisdictions that we want to cover, but then we have to then really build out the features. So at the moment, yes, we have legal research, we have contract review, and we'll have some other types of research available as well. You'll be able to do comparative law reviews, you'll be able to do in-depth policy research, etc. But we really need to then look at the individual use cases for lawyers. So if we, for example, get into a fuse program or when we are working with a big law firm, and there are big law firms who already want to work with us, then we can carry out more user interviews.
Mhm.
And once we see how MiAI Law is being used, we will be able to hopefully work out some other use cases that we want to solve as well. I won't be able to solve, I won't want to solve every single use case that might be out there, but then I will need to look at the whole user experience and then identify from there what other features we want to develop because we also want to develop more generative AI capabilities. So we will be developing the ability to create chronologies. We will be helping lawyers prepare submissions, etc. Not affidavits, not evidence, because that really should come from the witness itself. But we will want to be able to leverage the research and to leverage the contract reviews, etc., to help the user use that underlying material to change it into outward facing products.
Mhm. Yeah, so you're developing further or turbocharging the platform to scale
Yeah.
trust in tech and, of course, leverage the legal research space. Well, if you've been watching or listening and wondering, can AI really help without taking over? This episode is your answer. We've learned that innovation doesn't have to come at the cost of trust, that AI in legal practice can be both powerful and principled, and that the best tools are built by people who've been in the trenches. So, Lena, thank you so much for coming back and for reshaping what legal research can look like. It's always been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks, Miles.
Thank you. So, for those of you ready to explore what MiAI Law can do for your firm, your team, or your future briefs, head over to myai.law. You'll find all the information you need and maybe the solution you didn't know you were waiting for. And that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, share, or just send this to your lawyer friend who can benefit from this innovation. We'll see you in our next episode. This has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with Xraised.